Season 4 picks up immediately where season 3 left off. So it literally is a full-on continuation. And at the end of season 3, you see the bus coming in with all these new inmates. And in season 4, you really get to see what greed does to people and what happens when people are trying to save a buck, and what happens to these women in this environment, and the effects of the people who are in control trying to save a dollar, and how it affects these women and their livelihood and everything in the prison. Well, it is really great that you get to see the vindication of her paranoia, and because she's not a paranoid person, but at the end of the day, she worked for a killer, a Kubra. He's a vicious guy, and Piper basically put her in a position where she's like a sitting duck, and from the last episode into season 4, you really get to see how she is vindicated. These things are real. They are happening. And that she's kind of like she's in a very vulnerable place, For Alex, I mean, it raises the stakes because it's something happens that's literally never happened in her life before. And she's been through some pretty intense stuff. But the first episode, something happens that literally triggers the whole rest of the season for her. And her interaction with everybody, and just her own self-worth and everything that she's dealing with, and her own ethics and morals, But yeah, that first episode was incredible. It was awesome. Alex goes through a lot of challenges in season 4, starting with episode 1. There's a lot of things that just set off. I mean, she's tested in every possible way in season 4, and they were amazing scenes to be able to portray. And yeah, there were days where we went home where I was just we're like driving home, and we've been like crying all day, and we're all like messed up and whatever, and it was such like a satisfying day. And you're just like, oh, this is why we do this. Whereas other people might be like, what is wrong with you? But like, that's why we do it. After like a 16-hour day of just like freaking out and crying and, shooting in like 100-degree humidity in the summer in New York. And you just get home at night and you're just like, wow, it was so satisfying to be able to like pull all these things out of you. And you literally left your blood, sweat, and tears on the floor. So there's a lot of that in season 4 for Alex. Playing Alex really shows you that you can't control where your heart goes at all. She and Piper have a very tumultuous, dysfunctional relationship, but it's grounded in this deep love for each other. And they do these awful things to each other, and then they do these amazing things to each other, and you see how much they care about each other. And for me, it really just proves that you can't control who you love. It's just this thing, and it factor, like, X factor, whatever you want to call it, this chemistry that you can't deny. And for me, it just reiterates that, where it's like, well, when you have a special connection with someone, for better or for worse, it's just there. And you have to just deal with it the best way possible, And most people don't have to worry about being locked in the same place as this person, Originally, Alex just wanted to use her as a drug mule. And I think Piper was a little bit of a game for her, And then as she kind of brought her in and started teaching her the ropes, and I was like, oh, I can use this waspy girl to run drugs across country borders. They fell in love, and she completely shifted Alex's whole world. And, and then Piper left her high and dry. And I think that when everything hit the fan, Alex was just like, I don't have any allegiance to you, and then they both end up in prison together, and then everything is just in their face. A lot of ups and downs in their relationships, and there's also so many things where you see how they're there for each other. And in season 4, there's a lot of that too, in terms of Alex is going through a lot of crazy stuff, even starting from the first episode. I mean, she hits the ground running, and you really get to see, the dynamic between Piper and Alex and how that kind of helps get each other through specific things. Honestly, I think what makes you root for Alex and Piper is the authenticity and how much they care about each other. Um, you, it's something that you just can't describe. Some people just have a magnetic thing, and they just, whatever it is, they're like compelled to be together, um, no matter how much they fight it. And I think that that authenticity, you can't deny it, and people want them to be together. Honestly, we don't know much about her family outside of prison. We haven't, and that'd be something cool to explore as well. But again, she's kind of like a loner, and I think the reason why she was so great at her job was because she didn't have any ties back in the States. She could go off and do whatever she wanted. Once her mother passed away, it was kind of like, her father is a complete, we saw a little bit of that when we got to see those flashbacks. But she has no connection with her father. Her mother died, and she's just kind of alone in the world and has to kind of figure out how to survive. She's a survivor, you know what I mean? Whether it's in prison or in the real world, she's a survivor, and she just tries to figure it out. I think that it's extremely hard to have any kind of relationship on the outside. I mean, you see what happened with Piper and Larry, and Piper and her family, and um, you know, it's an unfortunate thing, but it's something that's real and that happens. In season 3, you really got to see that with Sophia's family and the things that's going on with her children and Gloria's children, and the things where when you can't be there to be a mother for them, what happens? You know. I mean, when you look at all of the inmates in the prison, they have some connection with someone, and they have some sense of community somewhere. And I feel like Alex is really interesting because she's always kind of like a lone wolf. In a lot of scenes, she kind of like, she navigates through and kind of does her own thing. She's very perceptive of all the different dynamics and situations that are going on. But there are moments where, which is always what brings her back to Piper, there definitely are moments where she needs that, and gravitates back towards her, or, whether it's, in the first season, Nikki Nichols, or she has her friendship with, Lolly, who Lori Petty plays. I mean, whatever it is, Alex kind of navigates through and finds some way to have that connection, but not get too deeply invested in it because she's always looking out for herself. There is definitely a hierarchy, and you have to learn how to figure it out. Um, and that is constantly shifting and changing in the world of Litchfield. And that's one of the things that keeps the show so exciting. I mean, there's a lot of new inmates and guards and a whole bunch of crazy stuff that happens this season. And a lot of those paradigms shift a ton. And it's always interesting. For me, the dramedy tone of the show, I absolutely love, and it just comes very naturally to me. The other thing too is there's comedy in any situation, really. In any situation you can be in, there's some way to make it light so you can cope. And I feel like in a place like prison, these women have to find moments of levity or they'll just die. You have to have these moments where you make light of a situation or joke about things, and it's a natural human response to something that's such a bleak environment. The natural thing to do is, okay, how can I survive the best I can in this place? There needs to be some levity, there needs to be human connection, and these women figure it out. I always love all the backstories for the characters, and it was great to see last year in season 3. It was cool to see how the backstory with her mother played out. I would love to see more of her in that drug world with Kubra. I would love to see more of that because I think it's fun and exciting, and she traveled the world in all these different places, and that's always just fun. I would love to see more of that, of her in that environment where she's really um, like a duck in water. Like she's super comfortable running that whole thing. That'd be fun. Genji's awesome. I mean, I've always been a fan of Genji's, and she's so, nothing is taboo for her. She goes there, she's not scared. And that's why it's so incredible and empowering as an actress to be on a show that, that Genji created because, you know, some of the episodes you read and you're just like, oh my God, okay, great, we're doing this next week. Whoa, And it's so fulfilling as an actress to be outside of your comfort zone, because I personally feel that that's when you grow, when you really do push the envelope, and I feel like we do that so much on this show, and it's some of the most fulfilling work I've ever done in my career.